Oh, man. Hello. Hello, world. What is up? Hey, welcome to Build. I'm your host, Matt Forte, and we are here live at the Build Studio in New York City. Our next guest is super funny and crazy talented. She is a classically trained actor, award-winning stand-up and writer. She's created the brand new Hulu original, This Way Up, which you can catch her starring in right now. I think this show is fantastic. Don't take my word for it. Rotten Tomatoes has it sitting at a 94%. That is not easy to do. I'm super excited to talk to her. The great Aisling Bea is here. How about that, guys? Are you excited? I'm excited. They're excited. So I assume if you're watching this, you're excited as well. That's 3 different degrees of excitement. We're going to bring her out in just a second. But first, we have a trailer for the show, so let's go ahead and run that clip.
My opening gag is where'd you get that?
Forever 21.
Well, that's a bit of irony if I ever heard it.
We've loved having you here.
Oh, God, yeah, I've had the time of my life.
Like I said, this is not a spa, it's a rehab facility.
Is she fixed?
God, do you ever just want to feel something for 5 minutes?
You really are cracking boobs.
I know.
You've got a fire in you, and you can use that to burn yourself and everyone else around you down.
Right, well, I was just sort of hoping for the lottery numbers, but okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, the great Aisling Bea. Come on.
Hello. Hi. I love that one guy gave a clap. And you know what? If I can get one man out of 20 possible people, that's a win for me.
That's a win. That's a good day.
Oh, maybe not. Maybe not.
No, I love that genuine enthusiasm.
Well,
That's
here's my
it.
side
Could
of
not
his
wait.
head. Sorry.
You like that?
Yeah.
Is that all right? You want it larger?
Yeah. No, please, no, God, no. No.
Larger and closer. We can do that.
Yeah, just to really drop my self-esteem really low. Just have my face blown up in front of me.
How could you possibly have low self-esteem right now? You have this amazing show. People are loving it all over the world. It just dropped on Hulu officially.
Yes.
Super excited. We just announced, I saw today, the release date for your film with Paul Rudd. That's going to be on Netflix.
Yes, so that one's on a film. That's an 8-part
That's
series.
an 8-part series. Forgive me.
Yeah.
Yes. You've been super busy.
I have been a bit busy, yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
But it's great. I'm really excited about it.
It's a great time to be Aisling Bea, is it not?
I mean, it really is. Yeah, except for the fact that I've no soul. I sold that years ago.
You had to get here.
Somehow, and that's how you get
Jokes
into
weren't going to do it, right? It had to be the soul.
Yeah.
Are you still finding time to do stand-up in between all of this?
Yeah,
You are?
yeah, I do.
Oh my gosh, no wonder.
Stand-up, I suppose, is a bit like if you're a runner. People I don't understand are people who run. Why? What are you running from? But you know the way they're like, oh, if I don't like go for a jog each week, I get out of shape. That's what stand-up is like. If you don't kind of talk every week or something like that into a microphone, you get a bit like, hello. Do you remember when Nell came out of the woods in that? Yeah, really up-to-date reference, guys. Liam Neeson movie, Nell, you know, and she came out of the woods and she was like, chickadee. And that's sometimes if I don't speak for long enough, I come out a bit like Nell in the woods. Oh yeah, you have to keep talking. This guy's on board. Everyone else is a bit like,
Well, that guy, he's been here before, and he's talked great length of how much he loves Nell. So you making that reference, I mean, that's your audience right there.
He loves it, especially when it's on in an afternoon. Yeah. But yeah, it's really good, and I'm really excited that I can finally show people and tell people about the show, which the Netflix series Living With Yourself, we shot in New York. So I lived here for September to January, and I thought I'd never turn into one of those idiots who's like, oh my God, I fell in love with a city. I'm like, who are those people? And by the end, I was like, I've fallen in love with New York City. And that night, as I sat in my apartment thinking about New York, you know, and I was like, ugh, I disgust myself.
I mean, to be fair, how long was it?
I was here from September to January. So
and you were with Paul Rudd a majority of that time.
Yeah.
It's hard not to
a bad life.
Yeah,
Not a bad life.
You're going to come out
and at the end of it, I looked older, but he didn't. I'm like, how does he do it? How does he do it?
In fact, he sped up your aging through that process.
Yeah. He made me older. I think he like sucks the life out of people for himself. Yeah,
that's
exactly.
the secret right there.
Yeah, there's all those babies he eats in a trunk in his green room.
Paul Rudd, famous baby eater.
Yeah,
Everybody
but
knows
you know what? We all have our things.
Yeah,
you know,
and that's it.
We all have our little quirks. He eats babies.
It said it's on the internet. His Wikipedia page has already been updated.
Yeah.
Paul Rudd, notorious baby eater.
Yeah.
And yet, America still loves him.
Still loves him.
Hard not to.
Yeah.
Speaking of things I love, this show, This Way Up.
Thank you.
How about a segue?
Yeah.
So there we are. So it just officially dropped on Hulu the 21st yesterday.
Yeah.
So America just got it. But you've been airing episodes in the UK and people have been talking about it. Were you at all, I don't want to say nervous, but like going into releasing it to American audiences, did you have like, what were your expectations?
I was really nervous. This is a reference I don't know because I'm pretty sure I haven't had any children. But I felt like, you know, if you've made your baby and raised it in the house and then you send it to school, you're like, I wonder will people like it? Like, have I done the right thing? Like, I've told it to like eat a certain way and not punch people. But when it gets out into the public, will other people agree that I've done a good job? Is this what you would call a good kid? Do you know what I mean? And so we really worked hard on it. I wrote it so, I considered it. I really tried to make it as good as I could. And then you put it out in front of people and you're like, this? And because some people might be like, no, and it's a nerve-wracking thing because I've only ever been in stuff before as an actor. Like you create your own stand-up, so that's different because you get to go and see on stage if people like it, and people really won't laugh if it's bad, so you know from a silence. And then with this, you're making it for like a year and a half without ever getting to show an audience. So it's the opposite to stand-up. So you really can't slowly gauge if people are going to like each episode. So the relief has been so, thank God people like
Load
it.
lifted off your shoulder.
Thank God, yeah, thank God.
I didn't screw up the kid.
Yeah, I didn't, you know, he's got 3 friends, great. Oh, thank God. You know?
Did you try, because obviously very different part of the process, and I was thinking about that, especially you have that instantaneous feedback in stand-up. Did you try to do your best of your ability? Did you go to friends for notes? Did you try to replicate that as all to get something? Like
yeah, definitely. I ran some scripts by certain people. There were certain things like my brother-in-law is Indian, and so in episode 4, we go and we meet Sharon Horgan, who plays my sister, her in-laws, and that's an Indian family, and I just wanted to make sure, you know, you haven't written, like, obviously I've a large Indian family now, my brother-in-law, but you just still want to check and just check that you've done everything right and in the right way. So I tried to be as considered with everything as I could be, or if something was just boring or a bit on the nose sometimes. But for the majority of it, it's really hard to tell because also you edit it. There's it's a constant process of writing it, then making it, then seeing what you can't get round to, then you edit it down. And you're like, oh, I wanted to be an hour. Oh, well, you've got 23 minutes. It's 23 minutes that you have. And you're like, what to chop. So it's a interesting process to be part of.
that episode in particular, I really enjoyed because it was you expertly oscillate between like, oh, family, like it was the perfect family event. It's every family event at once. There's really awkward moments. There's moments that are really touching and sweet. You're going back and forth. There's a huge moment at the end. You balance so many different vibes within one episode, and we get so much out of that. How much of that navigation were you finding on the page, and were you waiting to, well, I guess once we get everyone in the room, I'll see if this works, if we can go from this moment to this moment?
A lot of it is casting. Casting is a huge part of it. So for those of you who haven't seen the show, in episode 4, we go and we meet the in-laws, and they have their family dynamics, and we are just 3 women, and we have our family dynamics, and someone's always left out. If you have a family of 3, there's always one person who's like the enemy at some point. And normally in every family, like Christmas is like, oh, who are we going to hate this year? Oh, it's going to be the brother or whoever it is. You know, someone has to be the bad guy. And with that, I suppose I would try and see when it was the first time I was behind the casting tape. Like normally I'm going in auditioning going, excuse me, I've got a bag of dreams here. Would you like to buy one? And so this time I was the person going, no, not you, get out. A big power trip. But when an actor would come in and you would just see them, even with 1 or 2 lines, bring a complexity to the person. And that you're like, yes. So sometimes one of my favorite shows is Atlanta. And I think, maybe because Donald Glover is an actor as well, I feel like, because I've been the person who's had to come in for a day on jobs and go, oh, my line is like, so that'll be all. And you're like, oh God, how am I going to do it on the day? How am I going to research the character? And you just have 1 line. And when someone gives you a bit of fluff around it or something to play, it's so nice. And in Atlanta, I love how it doesn't matter what character is coming in, even someone just delivering a burger, it feels like they have a whole backstory and it just pads out the whole show. So when actors would come in for smaller parts, they make the whole show. I'm so grateful for all of the people with smaller parts in the show because they bring so much more, especially with a family episode, dynamics or how they get along. You have to believe 2 people are very quickly brothers or sisters, especially if they're not the lead character. You have to just see it quickly. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. There's an authenticity to the show's like sincerity. Like it just feels like you're watching a real family. Everybody, the dynamics are great, and you feel really much a part of this world. Did it make having that experience though? You said it was a bit of a power trip, but you also know how hard it is to deliver that news and to receive that news.
Oh,
Did it
yeah.
make it harder for you to make those decisions? For you to have
Oh, absolutely. And sometimes you'd have an actor come in who'd be so good, and they're just not right for that role. But and you also have to look at who else you have in the scene, and they're not right. And it's suddenly, I wish I'd done it sooner for myself as an actor, because sometimes you go in and you give like the monologue of your life, and you're like, and that is why we need to save Scotland. And you're like, why did I not get the lead part in Braveheart? Why not me? I would be less problematic. But just someone Mel Gibson joke there, just a small one, for anyone who's listening. But yeah, and it made me realize that you can go in and do your best job, but there's all sorts of reasons why you might not get it, and that sort of calmed me down a lot more about all the things I didn't get over the years. That maybe I wasn't totally shockingly bad.
How different was your first version of the story versus what we eventually see when we go watch it on Hulu now? Like, how much did it change and evolve?
Some of it would change and evolve again with casting. If an actor came in and was really brilliant, like Kadif Kerwin, who plays my flatmate Bradley, like when he came in, I just love him so much. He's got brilliant comedic timing, so he brought a lot to that. The classroom in particular, so in it I play a teacher who teaches English as a foreign language, and we wanted to make sure that everyone in the cast wasn't doing an accent. So everyone in the cast is from a different country. There's no one English doing an accent, you know. So everyone is from Bulgaria, and a Chinese actress who is amazing, and she's Pixen. She is like quite an elderly lady, and she has amazing comic timing, and it comes from such a cute little lady, and she's got quite a dark sense of humor, and I love that. So when she came in, I was like, her immediately.
Did you add that whole extra little bit where she goes with you to the hospital and all that
Yeah,
stuff?
yeah.
And once you met her, you were like,
saw
"We've
her
got-"
tape, I added in bits, especially with the classroom. And so, so I would start changing the countries where people were from and stuff based on them and the names and stuff like that. And also in that, sometimes what would happen with some of the actors, that they all have brilliant English, but I was like, you're doing your line wrong because you're doing the line right. So they would naturally translate the line better into better English, but you have to sort of write broken English. So that's where I had to work out how to write in someone's country, how their broken English might come about based on the language they actually have. So little moments like that you just want to make sure you're not. It would be very easy, I think, to write a foreign character and just do it lazily. So you want to make sure you do it right when you're doing that as well. So little things like that would be finding it.
You mentioned sort of like reaching out to make sure when you were writing, you don't want to just write like, oh, here's a big Indian family for the sake. You want to make sure you're sensitive to that world and that culture. When Anya, when you realized and you started folding in Anya's mental health and dealing with that, what steps did you take to kind of make sure that you were being respectful of that experience? Because based on the feedback so far, you guys have nailed it, and it's resonating deeply with people, and it's one of the most repeated comments I see of people like, oh, I totally connect to this moment of dancing alone in my kitchen after not dancing.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you guys really found that voice. What was it like figuring that out for Anya?
It wasn't actually too hard, to be honest. I think it's something that's maybe the difficult bit is allowing yourself to be vulnerable and showing yourself in maybe what you might describe as an ugly version of yourself. I often think that the places where people allow themselves to be the most ugly publicly are the places where you go to get beautiful. So you give your feet to someone and you go, fix that, would you? And it's like, blah, out of your shoe. Or you like go to the hairdressers and you see people with foils and all sorts and they're like, make me beautiful. And you just look so odd becoming what you might call better looking. And in a way, a part of the show was like trying to do the thing where you're like, oh, I might not be attractive if I do this or if I tell this story or what you know, like there's a version of you crying to someone, and then when the way you cry when you're on your own, and that's like, oh my God, I can't believe you're leaving me. And then when you're home, you're like, ah! You know, there's the ugly version of you. And to actually show that it was less about research and more about the kind of pulling off your skin a little bit and showing that. But what I've always thought, and you see this with stand-up, the more specific you are, the more general it appeals to people. So in the same way, I wasn't writing an Indian family there. I was writing a family based on my brother-in-law's family, who are from Kerala, which is a very specific culture within India, and how they share and how much food is always loaded up on the table, and it's that specific family. And that means that that has its own traditions, and all families have their own traditions in terms of how they eat, how they, you know, and even I don't know what it's like to have men in my family, so even brothers, and the specificity of a big brother and a little brother kidding with each other and stuff like that. So the more specific you are, people tend to recognize their own jokes, you know.
Is that part of the is that fun doing that research, finding those, asking those, figuring all that out?
I love that.
That's got to be a good time, yeah.
Because also
Exciting.
what happens is, I think you go around collecting little stories with people, and I think that happens with a lot of stand-ups. You're observational. You'll sort of like notice things. So you'll notice the confidence of one man, for example, to just clap on his own. Like, that's it. Yeah, there he is again. And like that'll suddenly, I'll be like, clock that. And suddenly maybe my character down the line might be like, woo, at a thing, and then realize no one else is clapping. Like little character traits that you can just see someone from something small. I love writing those in, and some people in the show are amalgamations of like a stranger I met once, or someone who's like my brother-in-law's friend, or just a little specific bit of someone that I find interesting as a character trait.
Were you, when you think back in terms of like the beginning of like your creative journey, were you ever planning to be a stand-up? Were you planning to be a writer? Which spark sort of lit first?
I was just planning on being a star.
That was it.
And it's gone really badly. I'm not 20. Yeah, I just want to be a teen sensation, guys. That's all I really want.
Never stop dreaming.
Yeah, never stop dreaming. I know. In about 10 or 15 years, I'll start professionally modeling, I think. Just be one of those young up-and-coming models. I think I've always wanted to act, so acting has been the big thing. And I was one of those annoying children that was like, does anyone want to see my dance? And people were like, no. Okay, I'll do it anyways. Like a really annoying, chatty child. And then I went to drama school in Britain, which was an experience. I'll just put it that way. A lot of mime. Which is one of those skills you'll never lose, guys. You know, one of those usable skills that you're like, yeah, this was worth £4,000 a year to learn how to kind of,
Oh, wow.
yeah. There's no rope there, guys. That was mine.
I was transported.
Yeah, to a rope factory where they were testing it out.
Where they just test ropes.
Yeah. I'm going to close the door on that part of the chat. Again, there was no door there, guys.
Was freaking out because they thought they weren't going to get the shot. You were, I know.
So yeah, did that. When I came out of drama school, I did immediately think that there'd be like some guy from Hollywood outside the door being like,
President of Hollywood.
Yeah.
You in, yes.
Johnny Hollywood.
Exactly.
And that Johnny Hollywood would be outside of the door and go, so what kind of movies do you want to do? And I'd be like, oh, well, mostly indie pictures during the autumn, but then maybe a blockbuster every now and again. I'll pick and choose depending on the scripts I get sent. And that's just not the way it works. It really isn't. I did a terrible soap opera in Ireland where, like, even if the microphone came into shot, they were like, it's usable. You know, sometimes like the set would rattle like that, and we'd be like, "Oh my god!" And you'd be like, "Are you not gonna?" They were like, "Nah." I worked like handing out vouchers for a couple of years for things on the street. Yeah, you do all sorts of jobs, and then I started stand up, and it was just this really weird thing with stand-up where it took off in the way I'd always dreamed of acting taking off. And I think I hit the crest of the wave, and it was just post-Bridesmaids where people were like, women? Huh? Where those guys been so long? And you're like, we've been over here. And suddenly, like, women's stories weren't absolutely disgusting. The idea of putting one on TV. So I started stand-up, and a year later I was on TV doing stand-up, which was quite a shock to me because that's what I kind of thought would happen with acting. So it's been, I think most people in our jobs do a bit of everything. And so I also have a pyramid scheme I'm going to pitch to everyone at the end of this.
Can I ask you, and this may be like a dumb question, but because you wanted to act, you had like it in your head, you built it up, what it was going to be. When you finally found success and it wasn't that, was there a part of you even amongst the success that was like, all right, but this isn't what I wanted? Like, this is cool? Like, was there a
I mean, I
like,
love stand-up, and
of course,
I
you're
found it.
fantastic at it. Yeah.
I found it so therapeutic, and I love it. And it's one of those things, there's an element of control with it, because you're not waiting for the phone, you're not waiting for someone else to kind of call and come and get you. And that's a very panicky feeling if you're always waiting for someone to hire you. And also there's a really gorgeous community. So I can land into LA or New York, and my friends can land into London and go, can I have a gig somewhere or a show? And we look after each other. But I definitely felt a bit of imposter syndrome. I didn't feel, because I felt like, I know the graft of acting. And there is that little bit of a kind of, some people are totally okay with getting success quickly, but maybe I was a bit like, do I deserve this? Do they know yet? I don't, this isn't my, and I think that with acting like this, I'm like, oh yeah, don't worry, I'll take the compliment. Actually, it's been about 17 years for a lead part. Actually, with the Paul Rudd show, what's quite funny is Paul Rudd plays himself and then a clone of himself. So on your call sheet, which is like your timesheet that you need to be in, they always have the actors in terms of importance. And even though I'm the co-lead, he's number 1 and he's number 2. And I'm number 3, and I'm like, God damn it, Paul Rudd plus Paul Rudd. Yeah. And that's the closest I'd ever been to number 1 before this one. So I was like, but it's close, but no. Paul Rudd himself.
What an annoying asterisk to have to put.
Yeah.
I'm technically number 2, but I'm really
I'm number 3
because it's Paul Rudd twice.
Yeah.
But he does eat babies, so you
That's
factor
the
that
thing,
in.
yeah. And in
I'm gonna
fairness to
keep
me,
saying it.
I
I'm gonna
don't
carry that
anymore.
until he comes back. We're gonna say that on this stage. That's gonna be it.
But I definitely had a bit of not imposter syndrome, but it was a bit, yeah.
Totally. Well, yeah, and that's why I bring it up. Imposter syndrome. We hear about that and stuff, and I'm always fascinated about that because there's so many unique elements to that story of it happening very quickly because right time and just also like I said, you had in your head what the path was going to be and just so.
Yeah.
So thank you for being candid and sharing that with me.
I'm so candid, guys.
You are. Very.
I'm just
much-
here
very
with
much so.
absolutely no makeup on. In this just my pajamas that I threw on. I had no professional hair or makeup here. It's just really me stripped back. That is a lie. Well, I have a professional hair and makeup team who did all my face today.
People don't realize there are no less than 73 lights pointed at us right now out of frame to make us
out of
look
this.
what we think is normal.
This is the basics I travel around with.
This is it.
I always love that scene in Tina Fey's 30 Rock where what's the woman who speaks like this? What's her name? You know, with the blonde hair. What's that actress's name?
Krakowski, yes.
Jane Krakowski, is
Jane
it?
Krakowski.
And she has a bit where she always wants to be lit a certain way, and then she walks out of where the lights are, and they have her being like, out of the lights, and it's just so perfect because they really go nuts on the makeup and have her really like looking 70. It's just such a good joke.
It's a great joke, and it's a perfect segue to the last thing I wanted to talk to you about, which we've touched on a little bit, which is not only starring but created, but you were kind of steering the ship. You were in charge of all of a lot of those decisions and a lot of those things, how it should look, what this should be. What was that like being at the front of that?
It was great
team?
because also it's not just me; it's a whole team of people that bring something together. But you get to choose the people you want to work with, and like a lot of our conversation at the moment is how do we reinvent the workplace and how does that trickle down? And a lot of it is kindness and getting to be. What I find is it's very hard to be like, I don't like bullying in the workplace if you're at the bottom of the ladder, for want of a better word. And the more you get up there, you can affect change. And a lot of that is who you choose to be around you. And are they good people and are they kind people? That was really nice to do. So my director was a friend and my producer also cared about the environment and stuff like that. So we got to make, I'd hope, quite a kind workplace for people, and I think that's how you affect change. That it's how and who you surround yourself with, and to keep an eye on stuff and to ask for feedback, because a lot of the time people don't. What I realize is unless you're really an open person. And allow yourself to be the point of contact for people to go, by the way, this is not really being nice. There's generally, if you're a freelancer, I don't know if anyone here works for themselves, there's no HR for us, there's no one to come to. And you have to really make yourself suddenly accountable for other people's behaviors and to fix problems and people not getting on or not feeling appreciated sometimes. In a quick shoot, sometimes pleases and thank yous and hellos can go missing. And that's something worth keeping an eye on. So it was good to see, first of all, where you can fix things because you know what it's like to be on the other end of things. And then also how tough that is as well, to be in charge and responsible for so many people. Because sometimes as a stand-up you feel like a bit of an overgrown baby, and the same as an actor. Like as an actor you get carried around and brought to toilets and sat down, and when you're on in the toilet or the restroom as an actor, there's someone outside with the radio going, yeah, no, she's 10-1, she's in there, I think she'll be about 2 minutes. And you're sitting there, oh, will I be? Apparently I'll be about 2 minutes. And you sort of like are a giant baby. So you're treated like a giant baby. So no wonder so many people's behaviors goes nuts, because you're sort of treated like a special egg. And so suddenly to be in a position where you have to sort of be responsible for everyone, you feel a bit like a grown-up. Like you have to wear a tie.
Did you wear a tie?
Yeah, I wore a tie with this outfit every day. Like when Homer Simpson kind of like pretends to go to work on the couch in his pants but puts on a tie. Yeah.
Well, it's on Hulu right
That's
now
my,
in its entirety. That's your right?
taxi.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, we got to get going. We got
Sorry,
to
I
wrap it
didn't
up.
pay my tax. I'm so sorry. Yeah. Ooh.
This Way Up, congratulations. I cannot say it enough. I thoroughly
thank
enjoyed it,
you.
and I'm very hopeful and excited for season 2, for more of this show. It's on Hulu in its entirety right now. Go watch the whole thing. I know you will. That's fantastic. What else we've got? We've got in the fall, Netflix,
Yes,
October.
on Netflix, Living with Yourself.
Living with Yourself.
Which will all drop. Can I say drop? Is that cool?
Yeah, you could drop. You can say drop.
It's all going to drop. My album's going to drop.
Perfect.
Drop.
I think you're doing it a bit much now.
Drop.
Yeah,
It's going to drop. It's going to drop.
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 Any stand-up dates? Anything else we want to say before we go?
Ooh, not yet. No.
Keep
Yeah,
an
I'm
eye.
writing new
Follow you on
material.
Twitter for that.
Yeah, follow me on Twitter, guys, but don't follow me home. We're really weird.
Casey, do you have any questions in the room? I'd love to get I got at least 2. Fantastic.
Oh.
Let's get 1. Bring it on down. What do we
I'd
got?
love if one question was like, where is the restroom? Oh, it's out there. Thank you for your question.
So I was just wondering, working alongside a fellow writer-performer in Sharon Horgan,
Yes.
if you ever turned to her for help on the creative process or just balancing everything.
Oh, massively so. So Sharon Horgan of Catastrophe fame, an amazing show. She was so I've made it with her production company. So she set up a production company herself in Clelia, and both of those are mothers. And a lot of their focus at the start was sort of female stories and stories of motherhood and stuff like that. Sharon, I've also known for 9 years, so she is a bit of a big sister figure, and I trust her gut instinct on everything. So she would do notes on the script and stuff like that, and we have a shorthand with each other now that other people might find too blunt, but she's like, don't like that, that's a bit crap. And I'm like, oh, cool, great note. I'll fix it and make it less crap. But yeah, I don't know where I'd be without her on it. And it's hard as well when you've lots of notes coming in from different people in any of our jobs, like who to take feedback from. Because I think sometimes when you're trying to be a good person, you're like, oh, I should take everyone's criticism. I should just, and you're like, no, listen to about 3 people and then everyone else that you trust. And Sharon's one of the definite big people I trust.
I have to assume she was your sister plan from the beginning.
Yeah,
on this.
yeah. So I wrote the part for her. Also, I think it's when you've got a show that's only 23 minutes long, you need a shorthand quickly, and chemistry is hugely important. And normally the shows or the movies that work really well is when the main characters have chemistry. And that's not just about sisters or lovers. You can have it like with Marty McFly and Doc in Back to the Future. They have an immediate chemistry, and that's what people root for. So to have someone who naturally is like a sister, like not many actors would be so comfortable punching someone so hard so quickly. But Sharon was very comfortable punching me right throughout the show. So, and yeah, quite a bit. She seemed very comfortable punching me. I'll talk about that with my therapist later.
I was going to say, how precise, when you're writing for such a close friend, someone you've known forever, someone that you know you have this chemistry with, how precise do you have to be in that writing?
One big, I think, tough thing for me writing was to make her different to Sharon's character in Catastrophe, because their shows both on the same kind of channel in the UK, and both like involve her production company, and so what I had to look at was a part of Sharon. Sorry, that's the police again coming.
They're doing
really
another lap.
Doing a lap,
They're doing a
which
lap.
is very kind of them. Thank you. But I had to work out what parts of Sharon's character are not in Catastrophe's Sharon. And for me, leaning into the sort of caregiver part of her and the maternal part of her, that's where I sort of found her voice. But it took a while. I'd write a joke and go, oh no, that's more that character than her. And that actually took a while to kind of brainstorm and work. And something that she would want to play, because Sharon's a lot of the time only in her own stuff. So for her to be in my show, you know, you want to give something that they'll get excited to play.
Totally. That was a great question.
That
Thank
was
you
a
for
great
that.
question.
Wonderful. But not about the bathroom.
But not about the bathroom at all.
No, it was not. Well, we have one more. There's still hope. Do we have another lost soul? Come forward.
Yeah.
Ask
Where
about
is
the
my
restroom.
house? Oh, I don't know.
So I was wondering if you preferred writing for stand-up or writing television scripts.
Oh, I would say as a goodbye. He's gone. It would be really funny if you were a ghost and you were like, "Is that what you like? Goodbye," and just walked away. But hello. So I think I rather writing for stand-up, if I'm honest. I think getting to do stand-up, you get to show it to people that evening, so you get to get the fruits of your labor quite quickly. And it's less lonely, to be honest. It's a really lonely thing writing a show. Because of the deadline, I didn't have time to go back for Christmas, so I was here for Christmas with a lot of like the other Irish people who couldn't go back from Christmas, and we all got so hammered in New York. We were like, "Animals in my peak, I was singing, go away, we can't go home." And it was really lonely. And like Christmas, the next day, I was like typing out the script on my own on a laptop, just like bent forward with like Chinese food, kind of eating like from the day before. So it's
That's so glamorous.
I was just really, you're just kind of like, it's a lonely life. And again, now you're going, you like it. I'm like, oh, thank God, because I wrote some of the bits you liked 9 months ago, and now finally. So the loneliness of it I find very difficult, and I don't know what's a good way around that. I think that's why Sharon, for example, writes in pairs, and I would actively encourage anyone to not do it on your own. Because also you've no one accountable. So there's no, I'll finish work at 6, for example. Because you can technically just start work at midnight when you work on your own. And whereas with stand-up, you get to go and backstage, stand-ups don't make a lot of jokes backstage. We all tend to go, "Hey, I really liked your bit. Yeah, that was really funny." And people don't really smile or laugh. They're like, "Yeah, that was funny. That was a funny joke. I liked it." But we'll all like give each other feedback and stuff and help each other go, "Oh, what about that? Oh yeah, that's the key to." So you have a community to sort of workshop your stuff with, and stand-ups often tend to help each other with people's jokes and materials because they can kind of hear a little gap. Whereas when you're just writing on your own, waiting for notes that come over email, they don't come in person, that's quite a disconnect from reality a little bit, yeah.
Are you and Sharon are working on, I think, Dahlia? Is that?
Oh, Delilah.
Delilah.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I had
yeah.
the D and the L in my head. I couldn't remember.
Well, you filled in all the bits yourself.
I
there,
tried.
Didn't you?
I really
Good man.
tried.
Yeah.
Where's the-
Dalabole. Yeah, close.
Where's the restroom?
So the restroom is like, so if you go out the front and right onto the road.
Okay. Myself out. Delilah, forgive
Yes.
me. I'm sorry. But you guys you wrote that? You're writing that now?
So we have this other show which is being made, a pilot of it. So just one episode, a test episode is being made for HBO Max in America, starring Jessica Roth, and that starts filming in October. And that script was one of the first, that one got turned down. So we wrote that 3 years ago as a script. And we spent 2 years writing it. And when Sharon was over here making Divorce, the show with Sarah Jessica Parker, the first series of that, I flew over and we were there in the evenings trying to write it out. And we're like, this is it, this is gold. And then Channel 4 were like, no. And we're like, no, sadness. But it just shows you like nothing is ever wasted. And it's a long old journey and graft. And so we kept that script, and Sharon, with her production company, went out and kept trying to sell it in America. And then eventually someone was like, I like that. There's something in it. So yeah, it's amazing that it's now getting made. And I made this show almost like as a sad reaction to the other one getting rejected. So things do have a way of kind of coming out and to just keep at it. Like it's sad, but I think to work in this job or to work on your own in any business, it's about how you pick yourself up from failure. And actually, it's the one thing I love about this country in particular. It doesn't tend, just as a culture in America, failure is part of like, I failed at that. Oh well. And people are like, oh, I had a business that went bust, but now I'm doing something else. And I love that as an energy. Whereas in Ireland and the UK, there's a bit of an attachment to failure. Or it's a bit of like, it's just a bit embarrassing if people don't like your show, or it's a bit embarrassing, rather than here people are like, well done for doing it. Go you. And honestly, it's a really gorgeous thing to be around. It's a lovely energy. Like everyone's like, there's always a cab driver or someone going, go you, I'll watch your show. I'm starting a business as well tomorrow. And you're like, yeah, but everyone's just, people do want people to do well in this country, I feel. They've kind of got people's backs.
Well, we got one thing right.
Yeah,
There we go.
yeah. No, I do.
Well-
I love it. It's, and I do think it's important. It's, you know, it's not a great time for maybe America around the world. Not a great time with the old PR for some of the people who are in charge. I'll name no names.
No idea what you're talking about.
But I do love the free hotel I'm staying up out of town. Oh, they've the nicest teas and coffee selection at that hotel. No, I'm not staying in the Tower of Death.
Tower of Death, yeah.
Tower of Evil. It is funny how many pictures are on Instagram of people just doing that to the outside Trump Tower. It's quite a popular picture. But I do think it's worth flagging up things that people love about this country. And I do love, someone was asking me, I have quite a lot of, like the show is technically 2 immigrants in the UK. So myself and Sharon are immigrants in the UK and have been for quite a long time. And nearly all of the cast, except for 3 actors, are either from somewhere else or are the children of people who came from somewhere else. Right. And someone asked me, do they think the show will translate in America? And I was like, well, I'd hope so, because that's the story of everyone here. And I do definitely, sometimes I feel culturally more comfortable here than I felt when I first moved over to the UK. Because that's everyone's story. And in America, people to go, well, I'm half this and 1/3 that and 3/4 that. They're great at maths. There's always like, I'm 7/5 Irish and, you know, 1/10 this. And I'm like, that doesn't, what? But I love that. I love that everyone acknowledges a sort of story or a complex story of how we all came to be here. And I do think it's worth them, like from an outsider's point of view, flagging up all the amazing things there are about this country and the people in this country. And I love you guys, you little cuties. Look at you guys.
Well, we love you
You're
back.
so cute.
Thank you for that. I agree.
Good. It's good to agree.
I suppose so. I got to wrap things up. They're giving me the signal, but I have had so much fun with you, which is thank you. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out. And I know you're crazy busy right now. It's super cool that you were here for a little bit to talk about this show. I very much appreciate that.
So much.
And thank you for making this thing. What a great thing that you
pointed
made.
at what I thought was your mug, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't put the water in there." I thought you were like,
Thank you.
Thank you for making this water."
For this water. I've been parched, and because of you, no longer an issue. No, this show. Thank you for making this way up. It is fantastic. You are fantastic in it, and I look very much forward to everything you've got coming up next. Your continued domination of all the streaming networks. This is on Hulu. Your next one's on Netflix.
Love streams.
There we are. Just keep streaming. Keep
The
it going.
Pocahontas of the internet.
That's
Love
it.
a stream.
Everybody, do me 2 favors. 1, go watch This Way Up on Hulu right now, front to back. I know you're going to love it. And 2, make a crazy amount of noise, because Aisling Bea right here is amazing, and we should make some noise for her. Come on, join me in thanking Aisling Bea.
Guys,
Do it up.
where is the restroom?